Are XRP Dark Pools suppressing the price of XRP? In this video, that is exactly what I want to talk about because a lot of people are seeing some big fundamental news catalysts and are confused why the price of XRP is not moving. In this video, I want to break down exactly why this happens and how these dark pools really work. Guys, it is absolutely fascinating once you start to wrap your head around what moves the XRP market and how there can be hundreds of millions of dollars of buy volume on XRP that seems to just happen invisibly behind the scenes. In this video, I want to talk about that as well as two big pieces of bullish news that you probably haven't seen yet. Make sure to stick around for this whole thing. You are not going to want to miss it. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. Also, if you have any good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange uphold down in the description of this video. With that said, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. So I want to start out this video and talk about two pretty big pieces of news that seem to have gone completely under the radar. And it's honestly kind of shocking that this stuff can even go under the radar. But for whatever reason, it seems like the news catalyst behind Ripple and XRP just seem to get suppressed by the mainstream media. Now, I don't know if this is some kind of conspiracy theory, if it's being done on purpose, if people don't understand XRP, so they suppress it. But for one reason or another, it seems like the biggest, most important things happening in crypto always seem to be happening with Ripple and XRP, but no one ever seems to talk about it. And the first thing I want to talk about is a meeting that happened earlier today between the UAE and Ripple talking about accelerating financial innovation in the region. Now, I find it extremely interesting that at the same exact time as Ripple is doing clearly a lot of work in the UAE, the United States government is also making trillion-dollar deals in the region. One of the things that is extremely obvious is that the entire world economy is extremely intertwined, and cross-border payments, liquidity, settling transactions is a global issue. I don't think it's any coincidence that Ripple has been meeting with the Federal Reserve since 2013. Ripple has been working with over 20 central banks since they've been a company. And when it comes down to the amount of banks Ripple is already integrated with, it's most of the major banks all around the world. Now, the biggest criticism for the longest time is, oh, well, they're not using XRP, so therefore it doesn't matter. Well, guys, the thing is there's no better technology than XRP. There's no, oh, they'll just go use this other thing. It all comes back to XRP. So while we continue to see Ripple's success, right, landing these large partnerships, working with these nations, large central banks, smaller central banks, regional banks, commercial banks, all kinds of different technology leading firms, that is all going to come back to the XRP ledger because there would be no point of them working with Ripple if it wasn't going to. They could work with any messaging company for payments. They can work with any company that can do a Swift transaction or do the status quo. The reason why Ripple is attracting this volume, and I can't be more straightforward about this, is because they have the XRP potential. It's because all of these people know that Ripple is the only one doing something uniquely different that can fix their biggest problem, which is the actual settlement of these transactions. The lack of settlement, the lack of instant clearing of these assets is the biggest problem in the financial system right now. And Ripple is one of the few companies in the world that has a technology that can solve this instantaneously. So I think we're going to continue to see bigger corporations working with Ripple. For a while, it was easy to ignore blockchain technology and say, you know what, maybe this is just a fad. That time is going away at an extremely quick rate because the United States is now legitimizing this asset class. And at this point, if you're not on board, you're going to fall behind. We saw earlier today as well, Jack McDonald actually did an interview saying that they are in talks with sovereign wealth funds about utilizing RLUSD. This is hundreds of billions of dollars being tokenized on RLUSD on the XRP ledger. There's nothing else even close to this level of institutional adoption, legitimacy, and bridging from the traditional financial system to the digital financial system. And I think that is one of the most important points about all of this. This is not necessarily, right, just building new value in the digital financial system. These digital networks like the XRP ledger, they come in two parts, right? You have the XRP rails, right, which are kind of empty. They're just these rails to move value from point A to point B instantaneously, that value from one place to another. And on those rails is a brand new asset the world has never seen before, maybe exponentially more valuable than any asset we've ever seen before. And that's XRP, created out of thin air, native neutral liquidity on the XRP ledger, bringing value to that system, right? XRP, an asset that's never existed before the XRP ledger, created out of nowhere, billions of dollars of market cap. But one of the things that system is missing, right, is assets from the real system. Because even though XRP's got $150 billion market cap and it's on the XRP ledger, it is the neutral liquidity. And if there's nothing else on the ledger for XRP to be neutral liquidity for, well, then there's no actual really important use for the XRP ledger or the neutral liquidity, right? What Ripple is doing is making that problem go away. And what they're doing is they are working with the financial institutions who have all the assets that need to be tokenized because there's no better system to do it, and they're bringing them to the XRP ledger. So that way XRP as that native neutral liquidity and XRP as the rails will be the clearing system and the method of updating the old traditional financial system and taking those assets, taking that value, and putting it on the space age rails of the digital financial system. This is exactly why Ripple is so different from anyone else. They're the only company that is having these high-level conversations while the rest of the market is focused on retail adoption. In my opinion, you're going to continue to see faster and faster movement on this front. And it just doesn't even seem like they can keep the headlines away from at this point. They're just kind of leaking through. And while the rest of the market ignores it and says, oh, this doesn't have to do with XRP, anyone with a brain would know that the only reason any of these institutions have any interest in working with Ripple is because of XRP. Now, with that said, I want to finish this video off and talk about the dark pools because I know that's kind of the main topic of this video. Obviously, there's a lot of other stuff to talk about, so let's transition into those dark pools. Now, one of the things that a lot of people are confused about, right, is how could all these financial institutions be accumulating XRP and using XRP without ever seeing any movement in the price? And one of the things that people forget is that the XRP ledger is set up very differently from any other network out there. Pretty much every other network out there, right? You just kind of live in the ecosystem, you exist, you do some mining, you do some staking, and you get rewarded some of the supply, right? Most of the Bitcoin has already been distributed. Most of that Bitcoin is held by a bunch of nobodies and computer nerds who learned about Bitcoin in 2013. Same thing with Ethereum. Most of the people using the Ethereum network and are allocated some Ethereum, they're OGs in the ecosystem. Ripple did something very different with XRP. Ripple decided that they were going to hold a large portion of the XRP in an escrow. And that way, the XRP wouldn't just be distributed to a bunch of Joe Schmoes. It would go to the people who mattered. And obviously, part of that strategy, right, in the early days of making XRP a global reserve currency is getting that global reserve currency in quantity to the people who matter in the financial system. So, right, Ripple doesn't want to just have me and you and everyone watching this YouTube video holding the entire supply of XRP. It defeats the purpose, right? They want it in the hands of the powerful people who matter. So what is Ripple's way of distributing this XRP? Well, rather than everyone else who just randomly blasts the token to a whole bunch of anonymous wallets and knowing who's on the other, not knowing who's on the other side, but instead, right, make deals with these financial institutions for them to be able to purchase the XRP directly from Ripple, never affecting the price of XRP on the open market. This allows all these financial institutions to get allocated to XRP and puts XRP in the hands of the people who are going to use the asset, hold it for liquidity. This is the most important thing to realize on the difference between XRP and the rest of these cryptocurrencies. Most of XRP's buy volume is happening behind the scenes and we can't even see it. Financial institutions are accumulating the asset and it never touches the public market. And while a lot of you are probably hearing that saying, oh, well, that's incredibly bearish, understand this. Eventually, Ripple's not going to have any more XRP to use for these OTC deals. And all these people looking to get XRP, right, in large quantities are going to have to go to the public market. The craziest thing is there won't be any more XRP around for them to be able to purchase in bulk. They'll need to drive up the price. They can't go to Ripple anymore to get deals OTC. And a lot of that XRP that Ripple was distributing in bulk would have already been distributed. People are going to have to go to the open market to source the XRP. And while every other token is inflating or has these anonymous whales who aren't using the token for anything, so they're just going to dump it when it has a high price, Ripple has allocated the XRP to people who need to use it. And therefore, maybe there's not a price they're interested in selling it at. That leaves a lot of that XRP unaccounted for, and XRP will have to go to a higher price for these other financial institutions to get their allocation in. Essentially, unlimited demand and almost no supply. That's the world we're heading into with the deals Ripple is landing. I don't think this is going to stop anytime soon. The snowball just started rolling, and I think it's only going to get faster and faster. Larger and larger financial institutions are stepping into the ring, and cryptocurrencies have never been so certain. There's only one company landing the institutional deal flow and has the partnerships to put this all together for the largest financial institutions on earth, and that is Ripple using XRP. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update, and for now, Mickle out.